Hi, and welcome to Your Best Life Today. I'm here with Heather Lindemann today. This is episode number 8 of Your Best Life. Heather is a 500-hour registered yoga teacher. She believes the practice of yoga can benefit anyone who is open and willing. She's the co-founder of Mudra Yoga Studios. And Heather's an off-the-mat, into-the-world activist and trainer, which I think is one of the most interesting parts. I can't wait to learn more about that. She teaches a wide variety of yoga modalities, including restorative, gentle yoga, vinyasa, yoga nidra, all the fundamentals. She's studied and practiced with an incredible group of teachers: Sean Corn, Shiva Ray, Judith Hansen Lassiter, Alana Kayavalya, and the Jivamukti Yoga founders, Shannon Gannon and David Life. So a very well-qualified teacher, studio owner, great human being. Welcome to the show, Heather.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Let's just jump right in. I know one of the things you're known for is bringing love into business. I've always respected you as a business owner and a yoga instructor. And I think a lot of the people that watch Your Best Life or listen online in their car, they are yoga teachers, maybe they're yoga students. Everyone has a career or some kind of livelihood, at least at some point in their life when they're not raising kids. So all these things kind of come together in life. You seem to balance it all really well. It's rare to find someone like you that can be such a great teacher and teach from the heart, but also run your business in such a great way. So what's the trick to people that are trying to do so well in all aspects of their life? Because apparently you have it pretty figured out.
Thanks for that. Gosh, I hope I have it figured out. I don't know. Well, it's so interesting. I started my professional career in public relations. I worked in Chicago at a big firm, and that was my career for a number of years. And it still is. I still do some marketing consulting on the side. But I distinctly remember one day, it was probably 10 or 15 years into my career, talking to my mom on the phone, and I just said, I feel like this career is stealing my soul. And, those words came out of my mouth, and I thought, wow, something has to change, because this isn't a way to live an authentic life. And sure, I was making great money, and I was, doing kind of the textbook career, but it just didn't feel authentic to my heart. And so I really did a lot of meditating, a lot of intending, a lot of manifesting. I'm kind of a root chakra girl. I can't, I need to feel like I'm financially safe before I make any sort of leap. And so I just really meditated on it for a good solid year, and which seems like a really long time. And yet, I just kept saying, okay, universe, I know something else is out there for me. And I had completed my yoga teacher training. So I knew about yoga, and I had been practicing and kind of dabbling in teaching. And then I had an opportunity to drop my public relations firm job and start my own marketing consulting career, which then opened up a whole new world in my yoga career, because I was able to have some flexibility. And so I think that first lesson for me was, I think for a number of years, I really wasn't listening to my authentic truth. I wasn't listening to what my heart was telling me. And I think that's really easy for all of us to do. As we're chugging along in this life, we're trying to get things done. We're trying to feed our families. We're trying to pay our mortgages. We're trying to sustain, and we're trying to live. And yet sometimes, at least in my case, I found that I got to a place where I was sustaining, but I wasn't thriving. And again, for me, that just didn't feel authentic and true. And so again, it took me probably another year or so to truly make that shift. And then I had an opportunity to buy Mudra Yoga Studio. And then that really opened up so many doors for me to really expand my teaching career in yoga. And so, I think it's something about finding that thing that speaks to your heart. And I've found now that I actually enjoy my marketing public relations work so much more, because I have this balance. I have the yoga and I have the other career, both careers, which is funny. It's, people say, well, what do you do? And I feel like I kind of live a double life, because I do both, and I walk both lives, and I live both lives as authentically as I possibly can.
Well, this is perfect. I have people come to me all the time. So I have a double life too. I own an entertainment business for, DJs and things like that. And then I have my yoga world. And so the people in the yoga world perceive me as having the dream job. And there a lot of people will come to me and say, I want to do what you do. I want to do what I love. And I have to tell them the truth that to do what you love might take a little while to cultivate that where it can become your full-time living. What advice do you give someone? We've all been there, I think, to take that leap from the safe job to the passion job. I mean, that's a juicy moment, right? And I remember that you can spend years doing something you don't love, and you know that there's something burning in you that you want to do. And a lot of times it's service, and it's you want to care for others, and that's what's driving it. What advice do you give to people should they make that leap, and how do they make that leap?
Yeah. So again, I can speak from my experience. I had a game plan. I didn't just leap and wait for things to show up, but I did have to really trust the universe was going to hold me. So, there was a moment where I had an opportunity to, again, leave the big public relations firm job and do some consulting. It didn't pay as well. It was, there were no benefits. In some ways it was not super steady. It was sort of like, okay, well, here's a chance. And again, I have a pretty strong meditation practice. I use a lot of mantra in my meditation, and I just kind of had one of those moments in my meditation where I can't, those of you that have meditated can know what I'm talking about, but just this moment where I just was filled with this tremendous light and this strength, and just like these, whatever you call it, for me, it feels sort of like a goddess energy saying to me, go, it's time to go. And, it would have been really easy for me to say, no, not yet. I, don't have my savings quite where I want it to be. I'd like to be a little more paid off on my mortgage, all those not yets. I certainly had a lot of those, but I just said, and I went back to that conversation with my mom where I just felt like this job was really kind of just killing my soul and not letting me be of service in the way that I wanted to be of service. And so I think, again, listening to those intuitive moments, really listening to your intuition. For some people, that's happens in a yoga class. For some people, it's on the treadmill. For some people, it's a peaceful walk in the woods, right? So all of us hear those words differently, but then have a little bit of a game plan. So I had enough of a safety net that if the bottom had totally fallen out, I would have had a couple of little checkpoints in place. But I mean, it still would have, had things fallen out, it still would have been a little bit of a journey. So.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So what I'm hearing there is maybe let your heart guide or your intuition guide a little bit more than the thinking mind that might come up with all these reasons not to do something. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is. I feel like in a lot of ways, so many of us come from, and this is getting a little into my philosophy of how I teach, we all sort of feel a little bit broken in this life, and we feel a little bit like, not enough in the sense of either, emotionally not enough, financially not enough. And what I've learned is that, and I certainly have those moments still today where I feel like, oh my gosh, not having a great day, I'm not feeling enough for whatever reason. But and for me, it comes in my meditation and my yoga practice, when you start to believe that you're enough no matter what shows up, whether you're a hot mess on the mat or whether you're a hot mess on the cushion, you're still enough. And for me, that was a key driver in just trusting that I had what I needed in order to manifest the life that I wanted to live, and to know that it was still going to get messy, and that it was still going to be imperfect, and that it was still going to have days where, am I going to be able to go, buy cat food, all those things that you worry about. And I still, have had those days, but they're fewer and far between, because when I get in those moments of feeling less than or feeling fearful, my practice is to turn to love. And to turn to love in my heart, to turn to love in my practice, and to turn in the love of those around me, and try to make that shift. And again, it's been a years of practice to get there, and I still certainly have those moments of practice. But yeah.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about faith, and where I mean that specifically is, say someone's listening that really wants to take that leap to do what they love, and they just feel that calling and they're scared. And that's totally normal. I've noticed over time you start to develop faith that it sounds a little new agey, but the universe will deliver. I think mainly it feels like a transition between poverty mentality and abundance thinking in a way, because what you're really saying when you're scared to take that leap is, this is safe, I'm scared that I won't be provided for if I go for whatever that is that you really want to do, because everyone knows what that is, and it stinks to be stuck in that place. I know. So I want to help people to go for it if they're listening right now, and maybe this is that thing. Maybe this is that talk that finally says, "All right, I'm going to go for it." And you hear these quotes like "Leap and the net will appear," kind of thinking, but I never really trusted that the net would appear. So can you talk a little bit about faith and how over time that starts to prove itself, maybe?
Yeah, and it's so much of an individual journey. I think everybody sees faith as their own different practice, whether it's in a church and it's a specific spiritual leader you follow, or it's faith in just the trees and the stars and the moon. And I think that's the first important thing, to kind of identify, what do you believe in? And, I've had people say to me, I don't believe in anything. I don't believe that there's spirit, there's a universe or spiritual energy. Well, great. So what do you believe in? Do you believe in your own strength? Do you believe in the power of community, of your family, of those that surround you? We all believe in something. And I think that letting go of some of the linear definition around faith is really important to truly find your faith. And that doesn't mean you can't use some of those traditional methodologies that maybe you've used in your past, but to find, okay, what do I really truly believe in? And find that thing. And when you've found that thing that you truly believe in, then the next step is to surround yourself with support. So what I mean by that is find your tribe. Your family members, your friends, I call them my board of directors, the people that I go to for anything. When I need therapy, I call my mom. When I need that advice on that, that spreadsheet I'm working on, I have another friend I call. I need something fixed in my house, I call my dad, or I call a boyfriend. That's sort of, I've got those people around me that can fully support me. And that's really, really important, because I think in order for faith to be sustainable, you need to have community surrounding that faith. And then the last thing I would say is to cultivate that faith. So cultivate whatever it is you believe in. If you believe that trees are the most beautiful, beings in this world, and you'd love to go walk in the woods, let that be your practice. And go walk in the woods and do it often, and find those times to create that space to cultivate the faith, because I think faith tends to waver, and that's okay too. Give yourself permission to have those moments, those speed bumps where you maybe trip over yourself, but find those moments where you can really cultivate what it is that you feel. And the best part of it is that then it changes. Then something else shows up. So you believe in the woods and the trees, and then all of a sudden you notice the birds, and you think, wow, look at the animals around me. And then maybe you start believing in that kind of, what do I want to say, universal expression. So believe in it and then let it go, and then believe in it and then let it go, and know it's going to change.
Great. That kind of speaks to a little bit, Patrick Harrington. He's another great teacher in the yoga community and studio owner. He came up with a phrase, stumbling forward. I don't know if he came up with it, but we were in a conversation and it kind of came up about all the mistakes that we make along the way. And I think maybe why people don't live as fully as they could is they're scared to make mistakes. And I know as a business person, you must have had your share of failures, because that's how you become a success. Can you speak to mistakes that you make, and how it's okay to stumble forward, to borrow that phrase, in business and in life?
Yeah, thanks to Patrick. I love that phrase, actually. Yeah, and I mean, you can Google a gajillion quotes on what it means to stumble and fall, but I think that what it's about is going back to that fear of that not enough, that fear of, if I stumble, if I fall, nothing's going to hold me. And I truly believe that those moments that I've truly fallen on my face, and I've had a few where I've just been, face down and, in fear, in, all sorts of emotion boiling up, tears, what have you. I've had those. I've been able to kind of pull from that sense of, you know what, there is a tomorrow. It's one step at a time. And I believe that this practice of life is indeed practice. It's not perfection. And that's why we call it yoga practice. We don't call it yoga perfection. We fall on our mat. We fall. That's why we use props in our practice, is to support us. And so those mistakes are oftentimes our greatest moments of truth. And I also find that those are our greatest moments of wisdom. So there's the word in Sanskrit, prajna, which means that internal wisdom that kind of comes from that inner voice. It comes from that inner intuition. And I find that mistakes, be it on your mat or in your life or in your job, if you can get to that place of really looking at it, and again, for me, it happens on the cushion or on my mat, meditating or practicing, what's behind it? What's behind that mistake? Now, were there some things I could have done better? Sure. But what's holding me back from really seeing it? And one of my favorite quotes is the Rumi quote, the wound is the place where the light enters. Because I think when we get wounded, we oftentimes just want to curl in and cover it up. And yet, even if we open just an ounce, we find that oftentimes those wounds are the places where we really get that universal truth and that lightness, for whatever that means.
Mm-hmm. Great. So on this Your Best Life, all different kinds of people will watch this or listen to it in their cars or driving to work. But a lot of the people that will watch this or listen are yoga teachers or in the yoga world. I was wondering if we can have a conversation about, maybe it is part of the yoga world, but I'm sure it applies to all people so that anyone listening would benefit from it. But if you're just starting out as a yoga teacher, or maybe you've been doing it for a while and you want to do it full time, you coach your teachers, I'm sure, all the time at your studio. How do you make a full-time living being a yoga teacher? I just know it can be challenging, because I heard that the more you teach, the less you can do your own practice, and where you are as a practitioner is really what you're offering to others. So it's kind of a catch-22. If you teach too much, I guess, how do you make a living being a yoga teacher?
Yeah. I mean, I think it is a challenge. I think in this current marketplace across the US, it's a little saturated. And so I would say the first thing you have to do as a yoga teacher, and even if you've just finished your teacher training, is to define who you are. So what I mean by that is, and this is something I learned in my marketing and branding world, is that corporations do this, frankly, really well for the most part. There's certainly some exceptions, but brands take time to define who they are, their message, their look and feel, their vision, their mission, their values. And so to find your authentic truth as a teacher and find out who you are is really important, because I think, and I certainly did this when I first started teaching, I kind of wanted to be the be all end all. I wanted to be the teacher for everybody. And I wanted to teach all different modalities. And I wanted to be, serve all certain populations. And I found that I was sort of missing a little bit of my authentic truth by trying to kind of do the shotgun approach of single to many. So I took some time to kind of sit down and think about, well, who do I want to be? And big picture stuff, like, what kind of change do I want to manifest in this world? Like, what do I want people to remember me by? How do I want to walk this earth? And when I came up with sort of that definition around who I am, and I haven't ever really even shared it with anybody, it's just my own personal mantra, that helped me define who I'm going to be as a teacher. And then take that definition, and however you want to do it, putting it in, maybe you put it in a short bio, or maybe you do put it in sort of mantra form, and put together, your resume. And then on top of a resume, make sure that you've got your bio. And when I say by a bio, is let it be really creative and authentic to your truth. That's what we really look for in our studio. When teachers are coming to us to teach with us, we say, okay, not only do they have a resume, great, we see where you've been and where you've taught, but we also want to see, well, what is your vision? How do you interact with this practice of yoga? And how does it feel to you? And then lastly, I would say, good old fashioned, just feet on the street, meeting different studio owners, and not just meeting them, but going to their actual studios, practicing their classes, so you understand how they want to, communicate their message. And I think to your question about how to make money, I think you also can't rely exclusively on teaching classes. As a yoga teacher, you really need to have a broad offering. So that means private sessions. If you feel it's a strength of yours to do personal coaching or personal engagement, either around the physical asana or around other areas. And then workshops, retreats, looking to really expand what your offering is so that you're not just relying on classes for your revenue.
That was an excellent bunch of wisdom there. So the gut feeling, I've been feeling a theme in my interviews lately, is that it's very common to want to be all things to all people.
Yeah.
And that's not the way to be successful. Is that what's true? That's true. You need to know who you are as a teacher and be really specific about what you offer. And I think that feeds back into abundance thinking, that there's plenty of great teachers out there. There's plenty of great students. You're not going to get all the students. It's okay that there's so many teachers and so many students. You're going to get the right students for you, I think is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. I mean, you think, again, going back to the corporate world, Apple has a very defined brand because they're Apple. And people that are, love Apple, they love them, but there are also people that don't love Apple. And so Apple's okay with that. They're okay with the people that don't love them. And they've defined their brand as who they are, and they've stuck with it. I think they're one brand that does it really well. And they're certainly not Dell. They're not Microsoft. And they differentiate themselves from those other brands in a very specific fashion, in the way that everything from the way you interact with their customer service to their products to how their CEO speaks at conferences. So yoga teachers can do the same thing, right? Define your brand. And if you have somebody come to your class and they don't like your class, that's their journey, right? That's no reflection on you as a teacher. That's that person's journey of what they need in their own practice. And it's been fascinating to me, the people I've seen that maybe weren't practicing with me for a while, and then they come back, and then they leave for a while, and then they come back. And it's, it's very cyclical. So not to get caught up in the sort of, and I want to say ego mindset, in the sense of like, oh gosh, I really want a full class. and oftentimes we want that because that's how we're making money. So I understand why why so many of us, look at class size as a measure of our success. But also look at that, as you were saying, that abundance mentality of the people that are going to come, that really want to hear this message, that want to practice in this way, they're going to come.
Yeah, I just read, I reread Tribes by Seth Godin. Tribe, it's such a great book. And a big part of it is, when you're a leader and you're building a tribe, a healthy, important part is that a lot of people are excluded from the tribe. Not that you're pushing them out, but there's a certain portion of people that aren't going to resonate with your tribe, and that is just perfect.
Right.
Because they'll resonate with some other tribe. You want the people that are, another thing Patrick shared with me recently was you only want raving fans. You just want people that are really in alignment with your brand. So this is much broader than being a yoga teacher, and I want to be careful to say that, because this applies to any type of business. But it sounds to me like this deserves some more unpacking, I think. This is really important. So once you figure out who you are as a teacher or as a brand or as a business person, you define yourself. It sounds to me like, to make a living doing what you love, could be yoga, could be something else, you go deeper with people. It's not that you try to reach a broader audience necessarily. It's that you try to go deeper with your narrowed audience. Is that kind of what I heard when you said you start doing workshops? Maybe you do coaching, but you're still serving that same tribe.
Definitely. And you find, and especially early on, as a yoga teacher or as a business practitioner, I've done this in my marketing business as well. There's certain industries that I have an expertise. And so those are the industries I most focus on. That doesn't mean if somebody comes to me from another industry, I won't work with them. I might, but I want to make sure I have a broad grasp, or a specific grasp on those industries that I'm working in. So again, same applies to yoga teachers. Find that tribe and then really nourish that tribe. Find your authentic truth, find your differentiation in this world, and then do a workshop on it, and then do 2 workshops on it, and then do a specific class to it. So start to build your message around what it is that you're teaching. And then what I've found is, in that those raving fans, as Patrick put it, are the ones that then start to tell their friends, and they start to become your ambassadors. And I mean, we all know in the marketing world that that's the best kind of marketing you can ever have, is somebody else telling your story for you. And so it's a really nice way to think about it, again, rather than that really broad reach approach, because I think you find as a yoga teacher, you also start to lose your own passion when you start to get too broad. You start to lose that authenticity in what it is that you're trying to speak, and what is your offering, what are you giving back to the community. You start to lose some of that if you start to go too broad, because you're trying to be all for many rather than focusing on the few that likely will grow into many, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. So Your Best Life Today, this blog is meant to have a long shelf life. This will be helpful to people, hopefully years from now, as they watch it online. But I do want to bring up something that is currently happening, and it happens to be here in Colorado, but we are going to broadcast it on the web and deliver the video afterwards. So it's applicable to anyone who's listening today. You can get a copy of this talk. The talk coming up is the theme of it's going to be a rising tide lifts all boats, and it's called Colorado Yoga Unites. But it could be any state, it should just be Yoga Unites, but it happens to be starting here in Colorado.
Right.
Heather, you're going to be on the panel. Tyrone Beverly, Patrick Harrington, Krista Schwind, and I'm going to moderate. And the discussion is going to be about how you are wonderful as a yoga teacher as you are. You have your own unique way of serving. You as a yoga studio are wonderful. You have your own unique brand, and that's wonderful. But we're going to talk about the benefits of coming together as a collective, as a team, and how we can lift each other to even greater heights. So I was hoping you could speak a little bit. This is February 27th here in Colorado. If you can attend, we'd love you to join us. But what do you think, Heather? What are some of the benefits? We've been talking about how to thrive on your own as your own brand or your own teacher. What's the point of coming together?
I feel like that's kind of what it's all about, right? I mean, at the end of the day, as I said really early on, I have my board of directors and my tribe that surrounds me, and then it sort of grows exponentially as I kind of gets bigger and bigger as I start to reach further and further out. So I've kind of got my my core little community, but then my community is pretty big because it's important to me to create change in this world, and we can't create change exclusively by ourselves. Now, certainly we are the first place to start is with our own work, but then to connect with others is where change really begins to manifest. And I think that we've seen a couple good examples of this in our yoga community. When we do come together as a yoga community, we can manifest some pretty amazing things. There was some legislation last year that we were working toward passing through the House and the Senate, and I testified on both the House and Senate committees and was part of that tribe to create change, the change that we needed in our legislature, and it was really powerful when we all came together. And most of those teachers and leaders in the yoga community at that point I didn't know, and now I have even more people I get to add to my tribe because of that experience. So I think that coming together is really important, and how we support one another, how we have a collective voice as a community. And again, to your point, Eric, this doesn't have to be the yoga community. This could be whatever community is you're working within. And coming together on a regular basis and having dialogue and having open discussion, there's nothing more healthy in this world than having that kind of discussion in order for us to manifest change and to also manifest growth. Back to your earlier message, there's enough for all of us. And so we need to be working together so that we can manifest that bigger abundance, that bigger picture, and not be siloed. And I almost guarantee you that the community is going to feel it. When the yoga community comes together, the students that start coming to class, of those folks that have been coming in that community, those students are going to feel it, because they're going to feel that there's now this collective energy, this something brewing, this something feeling good and bigger and better. And, that's kind of what it's all about as far as I'm concerned.
Great. Well, you could be the poster child for a successful wellness industry woman. You own a couple studios. You teach all over the world. People go to your workshops. Your classes are packed. You're touching people's lives in a great way. Really, a game changer type of person. Can you tell me how other people, maybe business coaches or your board of directors, you call them your family, what role have they played to help get you to where you are today?
So again, I think it goes back to holding me to my truth. So my mom calling me on it when I said this job is killing my soul. My mom said, "Stop for a minute and listen to what you just said," because I might have just kind of blown over that. No, I was just being a little dramatic, and she held me to my truth in that. I also have other communities that I engage with that really, again, work on the shadow self. It's that one of my favorite books is Brene Brown's The Gift of Imperfection, because she talks about that, that gift of being imperfect in this world and being imperfect as we walk this life. I do lots of things imperfectly every single day. And yet those imperfections are what make my life perfect, because they're the teachers and the moments of wisdom and the moments of humility and seeing, what are my patterns, what are my behaviors, what are the things I need to, keep working on. And those are those greatest moments of truth for me. So I think what my tribe does for me is they hold up the mirror and they say, "You're doing this really great. We support you. We love you. We're going to do whatever we can to support you. And we're going to call you on it when we feel like you're veering off the path," because we all do. And that's okay. It's okay to veer off the path. And sometimes we need to go off the path a little. But there are other times I've been off the path and I've needed a little nudge to get back on.
Mm-hmm. So just maybe helping you to see your blind spots, it sounds a little bit like, because we can't see our own blind spots.
Definitely. And to see, where we're missing the mark. My business partner at Mudra Yoga Studio has been my best friend since kindergarten, Tracy Lanham. And she, there's no one better in this world to hold you to your stuff than somebody you you played dress up with and you went to prom together. And we've really walked this life together, and now we own a business together. And that's such a gift, because she truly is one of those people in this world that can say to me, "Heather, I need you to XYZ, back off. Step into this place, think of this a little differently." And sometimes it may take me a moment to come around, but having those people in my life that can do that for me, and as you said, Eric, show me my blind spots, but with a little love and a little humor and a little compassion, because at least for me, that's how I need to operate. Those are the greatest gifts in this world, to be able to have those people that show you those spaces that really, frankly, are places to grow. They're not places to be afraid of or ashamed of or feel threatened by. They're the places of growth.
Great. Fantastic. So, the theme of this show is things that people can put into action in their everyday life to live their best life. I always like to ask for book recommendations. You mentioned Brene Brown's The Gift of Imperfection. Can you tell us some of your favorite books for living your best life that people should be reading, like starting yesterday?
Yeah. So I do love Brene Brown. I love all of her work. She actually has some great TED Talks as well. So if you're wanting to just check something out online, she's got some amazing TED Talks. She talks a lot about empathy in this world and what empathy really should truly look like. And I think it's really brilliant thinking. I think that we could all walk this earth with a little more empathy and less sympathy. Empathy means I am you and I see you, and sympathy is a little more separate oftentimes. So again, Google her. She's a great, great author. Sally Kempton is another one of my favorite teachers. She's a meditation teacher. She's written a book called Awakening Shakti, which it's definitely a feminine divine book. It talks a lot about the goddesses. But a lot of the wisdom in that book is just lovely. And it's one of those books I feel like you can pick up and kind of read part of it and then put it down for a while. She's another one of my favorite meditation teachers. And she just definitely comes from that lineage of allowing Shakti, that universal energy, to flow. So rather than getting super linear in our life, which, I'm a spreadsheet girl, so don't get me wrong, I love my spreadsheets, but I have to drop the spreadsheet sometimes, and I have to say, okay, I'm going to just let this flow as it should. And that's such an important piece to bring into our culture. I love Pema Chodron. She's another one of who I consider one of my teachers. Two of her books that I love are Start Where You Are. I use that theme in my yoga class a lot. Start where you are in each and every single moment. And be okay with it. Be okay with that single moment and start again the next moment. And then the other book of hers I love is When Things Fall Apart. I've had some moments in my life where things have been really shaky and really scary. And her books have really helped me bring perspective to when things get tough. So those are a couple of my favorites. If you need a book to just inspire your life and inspire your world, I'm a huge fan of the Radiant Sutras by Lauren Roche. It's a yogic text. So it comes, he has spent years translating this book. He's got multiple versions out there. And the first time I read it, I actually had it just so happened I was on a beach, which was sort of serendipitous, because it's this love story between Shiva and Shakti. And the discussion is really how to find divine in this discussion between Shiva and Shakti, and bringing in all of this beautiful language. And so that's another one of my go-tos, less for, the how to build your business, but more to nourish and fill your heart and your soul.
Great. So so people could get all that, Awakening Divine, Sally Kempton, Pema Chodron, When Things Fall Apart, or Start Where You Are, the Radiant Sutra. Did you say Lauren Roche?
Yeah, it's Roche, Roche.
Okay.
And Sally's book is Awakening Shakti.
Awakening Shakti. Oh, I said divine.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, pretty much, right? And there was one more, Brene Brown's book, The Gifts of Imperfection.
Yep.
With 4 great books. I mean, we all need to go on vacation so we can read all these books.
Let's all go and sit on a beach and read books. I'm down.
Sounds good. Let's talk a little bit about the physical practice of yoga. And in the States, it seems like I've been having a lot of interesting conversations about where yoga came from and how it landed in America, with Krista Schwind, who's on the panel with us coming up this week, and how it's been recently more on the exercise yoga side of things, but how it might be shifting to what Americans. My projection is that Americans need the settling part of yoga, the more soft part, because we're so used to going so fast in our life. It's just, I feel like that's a clear cultural problem, is we're pushing ourselves way too hard. Can you speak to, my perception is Mudra studios stand for a little bit more of the spiritual caring side than the kick your butt asana side of things. Why is that? Or, is that true?
I think so. I mean, we certainly have the, the Hardy Flow classes, the Vinyasa Flow, and a couple of hot detox classes. But I think, and you're sort of, I could talk for another hour on this, but I won't. This idea that we have depleted our bodies, particularly our nervous systems, in such a profound way that we don't know how to relax anymore. I have those students in my class that they come for one of my maybe more active flow classes, and they can't stay for Shavasana, and so they just take off. And, it just kind of hurts my heart a little bit to see that, because to me, that's a message that you don't give yourself the time to rest your body. And when we rest our body, so many amazing things happen. Our parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, which gives us more opportunity to digest better. It helps us rest better. It helps us engage with others better. It puts us in a place that is so much more nourishing than the more active practices. Now, we all know we need the sun and the moon, right? We need the motivation. We need the heat. We need the fight or flight system. We need all of those. We need our adrenals. We need those things in order to live our life and to do what we need to do. But we also need the moon practices. We need these slower modalities like restorative yoga, yin yoga, even a slower flow restore, yoga nidra, meditation. All of these practices help us to nourish that parasympathetic nervous system and nourish our bodies in a way that I think so many people are missing out on. I think that legs up the wall is a pose that's going to save the world if we could all get to do legs up the wall once a day, because it's such a restful, nourishing pose that helps to rehydrate your adrenal glands. It helps your immune system. And we miss out on that. And I think there's also a little bit of a message in this culture. I mean, I'm using this as a really broad statement, but I think there's a little bit of a message in this culture that if you have an hour, you need to burn calories and you need to work out. And if you aren't burning calories and sweating and working out, then that hour wasn't useful. If you're using an hour to do something, say go to yoga class or run on the treadmill, etc. And again, that's a great thing to do. But we also need to find that time, that other hour, either in a different day, or maybe we take 2 hours, which would be lovely, to nourish and to engage what are the subtle aspects of our body, our nervous system, and the subtle body, which we haven't talked about, but it's another, the subtle body is a whole another avenue in which these slower practices help us to nourish. We're more intuitive. We can listen in more. We can hear what our body's telling us when we slow down.
So I'm a great example of someone who goes too fast. And I've bought into the thinking that if you go fast and do more, that would equal success and happiness. And I know now from my practice that is not true. Slowing down and tuning in makes me much more efficient in everything I do, and everything just clicks beautifully. Can you speak to that, like kind of to the typical American who's just really hard on themselves and pushing faster, stronger, harder, longer, keep going, and they're getting adrenal fatigue syndrome. They're too much on the sun side, like you said, probably, and we're just burning out. Can you teach us to have some faith that if you slow down, that everything's going to be just fine? Because I think that's what I personally have a hard time believing, even though I know it's true. It's just such an old habit.
Yeah, I think particularly in America, it's in our DNA to be kind of workhorses. I mean, that's kind of how this country was founded, by, doing something a little different and working really hard. And that work ethic has, for most of us, really benefited us. And it's a tremendous attribute. But I do think that we're sacrificing something even bigger by not balancing that with some slower practices. So what I mean by that is we sacrifice our physical body. We're getting sick more. When we do get sick, we still go to work. We don't rest. And I'm guilty of that too, right? So I'm not saying we've all been there, done that. So our physical body is suffering. Our emotional body is suffering. We have something happen that, like a significant event like a death, or we're dealing with grief, or we're dealing with sadness. And instead of sitting with that emotion, we instead plow through it. The emotion, though, stays there. Sean Corn says the issues are in our tissues. And when we have an event that affects us, it stays in our body, and either in the physical body or the subtle body, one of the two, likely both, it stays there. And then lastly, it affects our community. So I know in my own world, when I'm moving 1,000 miles a minute, and like you, Eric, I have those times where I can't get to my legs up the wall. I find that I'm more disconnected. I have a harder time connecting with my yoga students. I have a hard time connecting with my family, with my friends. I am more disconnected because I'm in this headspace of the to-do list. And sure, that's okay for a little while, but to stay in that place all the time, you're missing out on a tremendous amount of the subtle stuff that happens in our worlds. I had someone say to me once, in fact, it was an energy worker, and she said, I want you to go home and I want you to receive love. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And she said, for the next week, I want you to receive everything that comes in towards you. So that meant when my dog saw me when I came home and started licking me, I stopped and I let him lick me, and I received every ounce of the love he was giving me. When someone came up to give me a hug after a yoga class, I received that hug. When someone just simply said, good job, kind of nonchalantly, I let that in. And that's that slowing down, that it's a practice for sure, but not only does it fuel me up, but it enables me to be better in those moments I do have to go fast.
Mm-hmm. What will sell me on it more? What would life look like for people if they took care of themselves and slowed down and did some yoga nidra, the moon side of practices? Instead of working 10 hours a day, they work 6, and they meditated for some. They notice, like you said, I just did that practice recently as well, where I'm so often on to the next thing that I wasn't noticing the beauty of each moment of that hug from someone, or just a nice comment. Exactly. I did that exact practice. Or recently, my Tantra teacher gave me, I've been practicing meditation for 15, 20 years now, 30-day retreats, some hardcore stuff. And I just got the hardest practice, I think, ever. And it was to sit on the edge of my bed and look out the window for an hour a day and do nothing.
Wow.
When you said that, I almost lost my mind, because I was like, I need something to do even in my practice. I didn't really realize how fast I was going, that even in my practice, I needed to do this, do that, do this, do this, and just to sit there and just be. And doing that practice changed everything for me, to just notice my body. And I never noticed the birds and the trees and things that sound trite or like another Facebook post, but it's so true, all that we're missing. And then I came back to work. I guess I'm answering my own question, and things flow effortlessly. What would have taken me 8 hours mindlessly and stressed, take me 3. All the right opportunities come up. All the right people enter into your life. I guess can you broaden that a little bit more to tell people it's okay to slow down, and it's not just okay, it's gonna get you what you really want. Like, we're all going fast because we want to be happy. So we think work hard, get the girl, get the boy, get the money equals happiness. What if there's no steps between that? What if just being and slowing down first is happy, and then all the other stuff just kind of flows?
Yeah, and I would even go a step further to say, if we don't start doing some of these slower moon practices, we're kind of doing a massive detriment to ourselves. So again, you're going to get sick. You're going to get sick more often, and you're going to have a harder time recovering. There's no question in my mind, and a lot of the data backs that up, of how stress affects our body. And then secondarily, how we engage with others, how we engage with our work and our family. Your relationships will suffer because you're not as connected. Arianna Huffington, who some could say is one of the busiest women in the world. I actually had a chance to see her speak. I think it was about a year ago. And she's written a book, and I've been trying to think of the name of it. I think it's called Thrive. But you'll have to check me on that. And she talks about, she had a moment where she was doing the sun practice, constantly going, moving. And she had a moment where she was at her desk and she actually passed out. And someone came in to finally find her, and she had fatigued her body to the point she literally couldn't go anymore. And she advocates now in her book, and if you follow any of her posts or any of her writings, sleep, 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, or, again, whatever serves your body. But this idea that we need to sleep and nourish our bodies and hydrate our bodies, because otherwise our bodies will stop working. So even if you're a go-getter and you're out doing, and you're feeling really full, again, that's wonderful. That's the sun side of you feeling nourished. So I would just encourage bringing in just a little more of the moon. Again, a little bit of Shavasana once a day, a little bit of meditation a day, even just taking 5 deep breaths at your desk, stopping what you're doing. Push your chair away from the computer, turn to face, a different wall if you're in a cube, or face the window, and say, I'm going to take 5 conscious full breaths. And that's it. And those simple practices, my guess, will start to lead you into longer term practices, like maybe then a 30-minute practice, and then maybe you start an hour practice. Like, I think starting small is the best way to start, then bringing in a little more time, because I know it's really hard when you are a go-getter to take that time to say, I just don't have time for an hour meditation. I have other things I need to do. So start small.
Yeah, small and consistent has been my experience. And I think setting a timer is something I'd throw into that conversation. We all have our smartphones. Let's actually make them do something smart for a change that's good for us. And every 2 hours, mine goes off.
Definitely, yeah.
I silence it during these calls, but every 2 hours, it gives me a quick beep. And that's what I do too, is just, I have to stand up, and I just go stand on the porch for a minute, or I'll turn my chair for sure. And it's just 5 breaths. It really is just simple. And I've been practicing for years, and that's some of the most powerful stuff, is because it breaks that momentum of getting sucked in to what you're doing. And you're going so fast, you don't even notice it anymore. You're just trying to get it done.
Yeah.
But you don't even know what the hell you're working on half the time.
Really?
So you got to catch yourself. So that leads perfectly into the last question of the show. Or as we get towards the end of the show, I always ask everyone the same question. Of all your life experience, not just yoga or business, just being a human being, what are 3 things that people can put into action today that'll help them to create their best life? So 3 really actionable things.
So the first thing I would say is to build your tribe. So who are those people that you surround yourself, that you trust implicitly, that you love unconditionally, and that you can surround yourself with support? Because we all need to ask for help sometimes, and we all need to utilize our community in a way that's nourishing and helpful. And then also look to see whose tribe you can be on so that you're also giving back. Secondly, I would say that idea of receiving love, that was a huge practice for me, and I know many of us almost err on the sides, and particularly in the yoga community, I would say certainly other communities as well, but a lot of giving. We give a lot. We're out there outputting a lot. So letting yourself receive it as well. So, and again, it can be as simple as, like my dog example, like letting your dog actually like love on you, or when you hug somebody, really feel that hug, or when you have a moment, in a yoga class and you're on your mat and you just feel really good. You just have that moment of just feeling that abundance, feeling that joy, to pause for a moment and let that joy in. I think that we've lost a little bit of that receptivity as a human race in some ways of letting love in. And then the last thing I would say is that idea of well, I think I'm going to change it. I was going to say rest, but I think that the other thing I would say, and this, because this goes across really any career, any path that you're following, is to bring beauty into your life. So I had a teacher one time, say to me, every time you leave the house, have something on that makes you feel beautiful. And that might feel like a more feminine thing, like, oh, I'm going to wear pretty earrings, I'm going to wear lip gloss. But I mean, it goes across genders. I mean, when you step out of the house, let yourself step out of the house and feel abundant, feel loved, and feel beautiful. The word Shri in yoga means beauty. And so I think of that when I even if I'm running to the grocery store, I'm like, okay, what can I throw on? So I'm feeling maybe not so ratty. And I think that's a really nice practice, because when you feel beautiful, then you're going to be able to offer beauty out to others.
Fantastic. So build your tribe, receive love, bring beauty into your life. And that speaks to a book I just read. It's the Magic of Tidying, or something like that. It's a Japanese book about feng shui.
Yeah.
One of the practices is you pile up all your stuff at once. So you do all your clothes first, and you have to get every piece of clothing in your whole house and put it in one pile. First of all, that is shocking for most people. And then you hold each piece of clothing, and you feel if it brings you joy. And if it doesn't, bye-bye. And you let that energy move on. You give it away. Someone else can maybe get joy from it. And I went from I probably 4 trash bags went out the door, and everything I have now I brings me great joy. And the difference in my life that's made is, it sounds like a little thing, but it's incredibly significant. And it's kind of like those butterflies behind you. You didn't need to put those butterflies on the wall, but they're beautiful. And it's this is our life. It's happening right now. Why wouldn't we surround ourselves with things that bring beauty into your life? So yeah, I really like your 3.
All right. Well, thanks, Eric.
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to confirm Ariana's book is Thrive.
Oh, good. Okay.
And then in the show notes at the bottom of this interview, you'll see a link to what's going on here with the Yoga Unites event. And after the event, I'll put the link there too, so that people can download the talk and see how the conversation goes about the beauty and benefits of uniting as a larger community.
Great.
Yeah. So, one last thing, Heather. If people want to learn more and practice with you, or learn more about your philosophy, how do they find you online?
So my studio is is Mudra Yoga Studio, www.mudrayogastudio.com. And that's really the best place to find me. I also teach at other studios, at least in Denver. And then that's the best place to go. You can also catch me on Facebook, Heather Lindemann on Facebook. And those are probably the best places to find me.
Great. Well, thanks, Heather. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Eric.